What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. It is Finish Strong Friday. Whatever you are doing today, make sure that you finish strong. That weekend's going to be much more enjoyable. The steak is going to taste a lot sweeter if you finish strong today. So make sure you get after it today. I'm Trey Griggs, founder and CEO of Beta Consulting Group, and this is Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership, episode 54. So we are halfway to 100, a little past halfway to 100. Very excited about that. If you would do me a favor, go check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com. See how we're helping companies to really stand out by helping them with their branding, messaging, marketing, content creation, podcasting, you name it, social media. We're helping companies to really stand out and build that brand, which is super exciting. So check it out. Fill out one of the forms. We'll reach out to you, or just find me on LinkedIn and DM me, and we'll talk about how we can help your company truly stand out. Also, got to give a shout out to my sponsor, TAFS. These are the good guys in freight factoring. So if you are an asset-based carrier, an owner-operator, if you've got 250 trucks, doesn't matter. These guys can help you out. They're going to educate the carriers on financial services, and they've got an incredible network to help you have all the resources that you need to truly thrive in any environment. And if you're a freight broker, you can also be a part of what's happening over at TAFS by becoming a referral partner. And so we'll put the link in the show for clicking on that. When you click on that, you're going to go to my landing page with TAFS and fill out the form, and somebody will reach out to you to help you get started with TAFS. Great company, great guys out of Olathe, Kansas. So check them out at TAFS.com, or click on the link that we're going to put in the show notes today, so that you can also just click on that and go right to it, which will be great. We've had an incredible lineup of shows this week. It's been a phenomenal week overall. Just as a recap, we had Samantha Jones and Ryan Beckham on Monday and Tuesday from the Freightways Live event. My good friend Scott Watanabe, the Freight Sensei, on Wednesday. That was a really enjoyable show. My boy Hayden Allred yesterday, he's a part of the street crew. Both of those guys was on yesterday. And then today, super excited to bring on my good friend Robyn Hyra here in just a moment. Before we do that, one last announcement. If you've never seen Word on the Street, which is our Friday lunch hour podcast, it's 1 hour long. It starts at noon Central. We're going to have a great show today with the street crew and special guest, my good friend Charlie Safro from CS Recruiting. She's going to be on. And so super excited about that. Make sure you come over and check us out at noon on LinkedIn Live, YouTube, or Twitter. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll get a notification every time we go live, so you can always catch the great content with the guests that I have on that are just tremendous, great expertise, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and that way we'll catch you. And be sure to leave us a comment when you watch the show. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our guest today. So this woman is amazing. I met her almost 10 years ago. And at that time, she was a director of sales and just like super spunky, like just really cool. And I got to know her. And then to come to find out, she's a tech guru. She's now doing some other work in technology and training and some other really fun stuff. So we're going to talk to her today. Everybody, please welcome to the show my good friend, Robyn Hyra. Robyn, what's up? How are you?
I'm very excited to be part of Studio 54.
Ooh, nice. That is clever. Just off the cuff like that.
It's really all about the marketing.
That's right. That's right. Well done. Good messaging on that. How are you? It's good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you, my friend. And thankfully, we got to see each other in person in San Diego not too long ago.
We did at TIA. That was a really awesome show. So excited to what they're doing at TIA with Enrique at the helm now, and just a lot of the just that changes. Just it's just fresh. It was fresh. That's probably the best word to say. It was really fresh. A lot of great content, good people. It was great to see you in San Diego.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was good to finally see everybody in person. Plus, I think too, a lot of people haven't ever met the people that they're conversing with on a regular basis. We all get to do the Zoom calls now, whereas when I was online doing training classes and selling software, I didn't get to see everybody's face. So it was kind of normal to me to create relationships over the phone. And now it's, part of the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, was TIA your first trade show back that you've been to, or have you been to some other ones since kind of COVID died down a little bit?
I did go to the 3PL Extend conference in the fall.
Last year, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was a much smaller show, but it was still great to get out there. But TIA was the first really big one, the one in San Diego.
Yeah, over 1,500 attendees. It was a tremendous group, and San Diego was a great spot. But it was great to see you, and you might relate to this as well. We've been creating these virtual relationships for the past 2 years. What I've found is that those relationships are real, because as I saw those people in person, it felt like we were friends. Like we'd known each other, and there were hugs that were given, not handshakes, not awkward. It was like, we're friends. And so that was pretty neat to kind of see that come to fruition, where we could actually hang out with people, shake hands, hugs, go to dinner, things like that. It was pretty fun.
Absolutely. It's amazing what technology has done to the industry as well as the world. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Speaking of which, now you were at Algex when we met.
Yes.
Algex was the place to be back in the day in the trade show circuit. And I was like, oh man, I want to go talk to the cool kids. And of course you were over there. So I got a chance to meet you at that time, and you did that for a while. You were the director of sales there. And then you made a transition to R2 Logistics. And now
Mhm.
you're the director of technology and training, if I got that correct. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So when I started out with Algex, I started out just in regular sales and worked my way up. And by the time I left there after my 10 years, I was executive VP of sales and marketing. So progressive through there, did everything from cold calling, online training, consulting with customers, you name it, and then also trained people on the software. Spoke with partners, which is where probably you and I ended up really doing a little bit more speaking. Any of the technology partners that we integrated with or that wanted to integrate, whether it was brought on by a customer or it was a technology we thought would be cool to integrate with, I had the relationships with them. So my position with Algex had a lot to do with training and had a lot to do with sales and marketing, obviously, and we were a technology product. So when I made the transition over to R2, originally R2 was a client of Algex and had a lot of branches. I helped them transition onto the software. And then I ended up deciding to move halfway across the country. And we just figured, okay, let's just see how this goes. And I began training everyone. And then shortly after that, I think they realized I could do a lot more with the company. And that's when I was promoted to director of technology.
Yeah, so kind of a crazy journey, starting in sales with a tech company, and then ending up becoming the director of technology for a freight brokerage
Yeah.
that you sold. So kind of a
Yeah,
fun journey path in that regard. Because you were in the Northeast, and now you're in Texas,
correct.
enjoying the nice warm weather and the low taxes down in Texas. So enjoy
Yeah.
enjoy that. Although it's going to heat up here pretty soon.
Oh, it's
Um,
hot already.
yeah, it's already hot. And Scott Watanabe, thanks for watching the show, man. Good to see you. The Freight Sensei, that guy's great. If you don't follow Scott, especially like on
Mhm.
Instagram, great follow. Good guy.
Mhm.
All right, so you started in sales, you helped with training, you helped with marketing. You're like perfect for this show. Like it's perfect, and
Thank
you're
you.
a phenomenal leader. So let's back up, because one of the areas that I think a lot of companies miss on, and a lot of technology vendors miss
Mhm.
on, is the training and onboarding process for
Mhm.
employees. It's onboarding them and training them so they can be successful. For technology vendors, it's onboarding and training their customers so that they know how to use the system. I'm amazed at how many people have technology and they don't know how to use it fully. They don't know what all is there. Talk about why you think that happens. Why do companies struggle, and technology vendors struggle with the onboarding and training process?
Great question. So many pronged answer. First is that the right people aren't engaged when bringing in new software. If the executive, the C-level executives hear of a software out there that they're interested in, they bring it in, but they don't engage all the people who are going to be utilizing it. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Another aspect of it is that it doesn't get how do you say? So the people that are out there doing the actual work aren't engaged. So it might actually not be a useful tool for them, or they don't understand how they're supposed to incorporate it into their everyday. So what we did back when I was at Algex is that we offered online training classes, and they were just available at any time where somebody could just dial in. We promoted it to the executive team that was part of the sale that we have online training. And we reached out to people on a regular basis to make sure that their users were coming in. You need to listen to your customers and or your employees and understand where what they need help with, what they're struggling with, because sometimes we get a tool, but it doesn't really solve the problem. So the very first thing we need to understand is, what problem are we trying to solve? What are we trying to accomplish? And then follow through on both ends, either whether it's following with the management team to bring in the right tool, or speaking with the users, understanding what their problems are, and then bringing that to the C-level.
Yeah, it seems like there's just kind of a disconnect sometimes, because a lot of times the people that purchase technology are not the people that are going to use the technology. And the users may not even know what it's about. They're not bought in. And so I think
Mhm.
it's really critical when you're selling technology to invite some users in. Like, who are some going to be some of your master users, your key users that
Yes.
can be your evangelists, for lack of better words, inside that organization. Say, no, everybody, we need to get on board. Those users that are super users that are going to learn and really adopt it, and then help everyone else get on board. I just see it happen too much that I've sold technology as well, and you have as well. A lot of times you're just wanting to get the sale, and a lot of times you skip some of those steps that could be really critical during the onboarding process and a really successful engagement to keep a customer. But I think that's really critical. So now in your role at R2, you're not only implementing technology for the company, but you're also doing some training of the technology for people who are either new in the company or anytime you have new technology. Is that correct?
Yes, all of that. So every new employee that starts with R2 goes through my training department. I am the training department. I'm now recruiting kind of some people internally to help with that because I've actually never done their job. I spent 10 years speaking to everyone from operational managers who, when I did on-site training and I spoke with and saw people in operations utilizing software, but I've actually never done it, which is crazy. When I was with Algix, I worked from home. And here with R2, I work in the office every day. So I can go out on the floor and see how people actually utilize the software. But I've never done it. So I'm bringing in some people here from the team now to assist in some ongoing, some new hire training as well as ongoing training. Because the training it doesn't stop after the first few days that they start the company. It has to be ongoing.
Yeah, and I love the fact that R2 has invested in having somebody who is there on the team to train people ongoing, because it's not just the beginning, like you said. Sometimes people need refresher courses, and as Scott just said, there has to be operational engagement with new tech in order for the adoption to set in. I think that's so true, and it's an ongoing process. How long is your initial training with a new employee at R2? How long do you guys invest in them before you really put them into a seat to start producing?
Great question. So in the beginning, we thought it would be a very intense 5-day program. I know some of the larger companies do something a little bit longer. What we've ended up landing on currently is a 3-day, pretty intense program. What I find is that you lose the attention of people. It's a lot to sit in a room with just me. I try to tell some very silly stories.
Hopefully you bring
People
some baked goods, which we'll get to later.
do. We talk about, I make analogies of things. People can relate to food, Uber, and dating. So I make a lot of random analogies. We tend to hire younger, like fresh out of college people, not an ageism thing, but just more from how we like to bring them in at an entry level, right? So they relate to all of those things. And transportation, sales, all of these things can relate to those industries. So we're at about a 3-day training program right now.
Well, I would find it hard to believe that anybody would get bored or have trouble paying attention to your stories and your baked goods. So
Yes.
I could probably do 2 weeks of training with Robyn Hyra if I had to, and it would be just fine. But you say do 3 days of training that's really intense on the technology side of it, and then they go into other training. Is that correct?
No. So actually, when they first start out with us, we talk a little bit about the company culture, how we got started, and then start educating them on what is logistics, how the company is set up. These people don't know anything a lot of times. There's a lot of people out there that are graduates of supply chain logistics, but that's not necessarily who ends up getting hired here. So we have to train them on logistics, and then we also train them on some of the software tools that we use and the different technologies here. Once they go out on the floor, most of the new hires are operational. About 80 to 90% of the company is probably heavy operational. Then there's still going to be an ongoing learning along with their associates and their managers.
Yeah. And then what's that ongoing training like? Are you touching base with them every week, every couple of weeks at the beginning? How often are you checking in to make sure that they have what they need, that they're comfortable, that they're properly trained?
Sure. I check in on them I would say a handful of times over the first week or two, just to make sure that they're doing okay. They usually are. And then I check in with their managers every so often. They're all right here on my floor, so I could just walk around and pop in. And a lot of them pop in to see me and let me know that everything's going well. We have a really, really great, dedicated, loyal group here who very tight quarters, not because we don't have the space, but more it's just very tight knit. And anybody that's on the line in logistics knows it's pretty intense. So you go from 0 to 1,000 in a hot second.
Yeah, and I can imagine that the managers on the floor love having a resource right there on site to help them out,
Yeah.
because managers have a lot to do. They've got a lot of people to oversee. They've got metrics to keep track of, and a lot of things to do. Sometimes to stop what they're doing and to spend time training one individual or two individuals that just need a little more training is very difficult to do, and oftentimes doesn't happen. So the fact that R2 has invested in somebody who's a full-time trainer and available, it reminds me a lot of the companies that also invest in leadership, because leadership development is also something that managers oftentimes don't have time to fully do, to develop people and their leadership skills. So I love the fact that you guys are investing in that. And that's something for every company out there. Like, if you really want to be good with your training, don't just ask your managers to do all the training. Actually have somebody who's a professional who can engage in a real meaningful way, and doesn't hurt somebody that has baked goods that they can bring in that are dynamic. And Russell easily says that he can vouch for your baked goods. So I'm sure Russell's right there in the office, but he said he can vouch for the baked goods. So what are the baked goods of choice right now? What's like your favorite thing to bake and bring in? What seems to be a big hit?
Oh my goodness. Lately it seems to be donuts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I think because if you bring in
homemade donuts?
Yes.
And do you have a donut maker? Do you tell me about this?
You're looking at her.
Is like a machine, or how do you make them?
So as Russell and some people know, I had a home-based vegan bakery for a handful of years. I sold to coffee shops and directly to the public, and all of the cupcakes, the breads, the donuts, they're all baked, not fried. So it's just a mold, and you just pour in the batter and you bake it. And then sometimes I dip it in a glaze and sprinkles, or I'll dip it in chocolate. Some of them are cinnamon sugared. So like cinnamon sugared donut flavor.
Oh man. Yeah, training would be way better with that. So I'm going to have to connect you with my daughter who's 14. She loves to bake, and I would love for her to rock some of those sometime. That'd be pretty nice little Saturday morning treat. That'd be a good one. But it's really an investment. And, Greg says there's no time to develop leaders. It's like no time to exercise. If you prioritize it, you'll find the time. Totally true, Greg. And I think that, if managers are going to be the ones to do the leadership and the training, you got to give them margin. You got to give them space and the time to do that. And if they're just not able to do it, overwhelmed with too many tasks, or maybe the team's really big, invest in some resources for training, for leadership development, for these things that are really critical to the success of your company, but oftentimes get overlooked. So it's cool that you guys are doing that. So let's talk a little bit about. He's back up there with Greg. Greg's comments again. So let's talk a little bit about. So you transitioned from selling to now being a part of the organization that you sold to. Do you ever find yourself going on the sales floor and giving some advice, helping out the sales team?
Yes. So, well, not so much the sales team, but more the operational team, I think. I think people get blinders on. They only learn how to do something the way that somebody told them when they first got started. When I train people, I give them the foundation of this is what you're responsible for on a day-to-day basis. And then they go out on the floor and they're taught all the wrong ways to do it, right? And it's just like I relate it to learning Spanish in school. You learn Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and it's just like formal English. Nobody really speaks that way. And it's the same thing in my training. I'm giving everyone how ideally everything would like to get done. And then they go out on the floor and it's all bastardized. And they get stuck in their routine of how the person sitting to their right and the person sitting to their left taught them how to do it. So every once in a while, I'll go out there and sit with people and say, show me what you're doing. And I'll say, well, did you know that you could just click this button and this could do this? Oh, but they really get caught up in their day to day. So it's more like that. Sometimes, like recently, I had somebody come in, a carrier salesperson, And he sat down and he's like, can I spend some time with you? How can I be the most effective carrier salesperson? I said, well, pick up the phone. Don't do everything via email. I'm like, go old school, man. Nobody is making that connection. I think anything in sales, carrier sales is sales, right? Anything selling, whether it's software, it doesn't matter what you're selling. It's still, the same behaviors. And people don't make enough connections. They're trying to do everything easier through email. They think it's a lot more efficient. So I think I'm trying to rattle some cages more from that perspective of thinking outside the box. I feel like we probably talked about it at one time, back in the day when I started in sales, you literally had to knock on doors. I did literal door-to-door sales business. I didn't sell knives or encyclopedias.
Encyclopedias. Most people on this call don't even know that those used to be sold door to door.
Right.
We're aging ourselves here.
Yes. Well, I sold newspaper space. I sold help wanted space and space in magazines. And I tell people, I'm like, I used to work in a newspaper. It's a piece of paper and you open it. It wasn't electronic. So yes, dating myself a little bit, but you become you have to be personable. Right? Stand out, be a little bit different, engage with people. These are all things. It doesn't matter what you're selling or what you're doing. These should be common things that everyone is doing every day to create relationships. And at the end of the day, you need to ask a lot of questions, learn what their pain points are. What problem are you trying to solve? Ask people to talk about themselves, talk about their business. How else are you going to learn?
Yeah, no, I think those are great points. And, anybody in sales at any time in history, I think you have to just look around and think, how would I want to be communicated with? How would I respond? This is terrible. I don't listen to voicemail anymore. I don't know. I have no desire. So if somebody calls me and leaves me a voicemail, they're not going to hear back from me. I'm sorry. If you've left me a voicemail out there, it's just not going to happen. If you text me, I'll probably text back immediately. If it's a social media comment, like if somebody engages with my social media, I'll probably get that pretty quickly. WhatsApp, I get that pretty quickly. Email, like how many people really like to go through their email? To me, email is like a necessary evil of business right now. I'm not a huge fan of that. But I think that salespeople think that if they just send emails out that they're working, there's activity there. But it's not necessarily productive. A lot of people don't respond to email much anymore, especially a cold email, unless it's really, really good. But picking up the phone, engaging on social media, and even texting now, because people are more willing to give out their cell phones now than they ever were before. If somebody were to text me, I would be more engaged with that, even if it was a cold text, than a cold email or voicemail. So I was just looking.
You wouldn't think it's phishing?
Say it again?
You wouldn't think it's phishing?
Well, it depends on how they do it, right? If they introduce themselves, right? If there's an introduction or if there's a connection, I might respond to that a little bit, just because for me, text message is immediate. I've got my phone with me. It's just immediate, much more than any other form of communication. So I'm just saying, I think that we have to look around and see how people communicate, and if people are willing to give out their cell phone, why not try to engage, or at least to start a relationship or a conversation? I wouldn't jump right in with, hey, we've got a promotion for you. But I would jump in with, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn and I was curious if you do this kind of thing. That would be open to that. But I just think you have to be sensitive to how people communicate these days. If somebody wants to get a hold of me, they better text me, or else it's, if it's voicemail, it's dead.
So you should put that on your LinkedIn. So that is a great segue into what I wanted to talk about, which is pet peeves.
Let's do it. Robyn's pet peeves. Could this be a segment? Robyn's pet peeves.
Yes. I've got a lot. So Trey's pet peeve is emails. Okay. So I have some pet peeves, just ones that, voicemail and email is no good for Trey. What I don't like is when a telemarketer calls me, number one, from speakerphone. I can't understand you. You do not have a good connection. If you're going to be a telemarketer.
You answer telemarketing calls?
Well, sometimes if you're expecting a call and it doesn't show up correctly as possible spam on the office line, then I'll pick it up. It could be a carrier that got misdirected or a customer that got misdirected. So if my office line rings, I usually answer it.
Yeah.
You never know, right? So don't sell me. Don't tell me what I need if you've never even spoken with me before.
100%.
Right? Yeah,
100%.
ask questions. I might actually be interested. It's all about the intro. So you have about 10 seconds to get my attention. If you keep talking and you don't give me an opening, I'm just going to hang up on you.
Right. What's the point? Right.
Tough
Yeah,
love,
exactly.
man.
Yeah. No, that's actually a great point. I think too many salespeople
Mhm.
have not mastered the art of asking open-ended questions that are engaging, because you get people talking about themselves, people usually don't mind. And the
Yeah.
more that you ask questions, the more they're like, wow, this person might actually care about my
And,
problem.
and maybe do a little bit of research before you call that person. Find
Oh,
out about the
100%.
company, right?
Yep,
And then
100%.
also ask if you're catching them at a good time. That was a very good sales tactic that I use. I didn't even realize it was a tactic, but most people told me that they really appreciated that I asked, "Do you have a few moments, or is there a better time I can call you back?"
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great tip. And another hack for cold calling is, my friend Michael Nemi does this. He will actually target who he wants to talk to in that company, but then
Mhm.
what he will do is he will talk to some of the other players in the company that are important to the conversation. So, for example, if he's talking about managed transportation, he may try to talk to the person in accounts receivable to see how their job is going and if their technology is actually helpful and if they have issues. And then he might
Wow.
go and say, "Hey, I spoke with Diane. She was kind of telling me about your process. It sounds like technology might help you out a little bit." So he's got a couple of tricks as well that do the research
Very
side of it.
nice.
He actually talks to people in the organization. So
Excellent
pretty
tactic.
interesting. Yeah,
Yes,
but
that's research.
I know, but I like some of these tactics. So how many pet peeves do you think you have? What's
Oh,
the count?
it depends. It depends on what category we're talking about.
Let's talk about baked goods real quick, because I just
Okay.
love the fact that you had a bakery. What are your pet peeves when it comes to baking?
Um, so I'm going to say more pet peeves on what products are out there. Certainly not I'm not, even though I'm a vegan baker, I'm not a vegan. I call just myself plant-based. I don't identify as a vegan. But when,
So hold on. Vegan
sure,
baking. So vegan to me is no meat, right? It's pretty
yep,
much.
no meat, no dairy, no eggs.
Okay,
Yep.
so it's no dairy or eggs. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself like,
No butter.
vegan meat, and you put meat, and who puts meat in baked goods? Okay, good. I'm now good.
Bacon.
All right.
Bacon.
Oh, that's right. Bacon maple bars are so good.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right.
Okay.
Keep going.
I know. So just the expectation. I think what bothers me about that is people expect that it's not going to be very tasty. So Russell can attest to it. You can attest to it. I did bring you
Uh-huh.
baked goods
Douchebag.
at
Yeah.
the conference. I don't know who else is on the line that's had it, but just because it's vegan doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. So, and I will
That's right.
challenge anybody to bake something as good as my baked goods,
I
standard
like it. Oh, throw down the gauntlet. Who wants to go against Robyn Hyra in a
or
bakery challenge? And I would love to be a judge if that's okay. So,
awesome. Yes.
that
All
would be
right. Let's
awesome.
set it up, man. I'm waiting for challengers to come in the comments.
Robyn, I can't believe it. We're at 30 minutes already, which is nuts. I'm telling you, this goes by so fast. I really enjoyed hearing you talk about your training that you guys do. God says that in regards to training, accountability, it is a must,
True.
100%. Like, you can't just expect that people. I heard this one time. I heard somebody say, people don't do what you expect; they do what you inspect. And I always thought that was kind of a,
I love that.
yeah.
Can I
I
have
thought
a
that
feeling that?
you can totally steal that. Absolutely, you can totally steal that. People don't do what you expect; they do what you inspect. That accountability is really critical. Scott also says it doesn't stay in their operations because they get assigned to a team with outdated processes still in place. Training a lot of times is like the game of telephone. It just gets passed around. Like, if somebody does something one way, then somebody else starts doing that because they think that's the right way. And then it can be different than, like you said, bastardized, like you said, in that regard. So I think it's critical that training is an ongoing process. I love what you're doing at R2. Robyn, you're such a delight. You're such a good
Aw,
friend. And
thank
I
you.
really appreciate your time to be on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Again, part of Studio 54. I love it. I wasn't around during that time, but glad to be a part of it.
Lucky episode 54. And for everybody that's watching, thanks so much for being a part and for engaging. Russell, great to see you on the show as well. Make sure you guys come back on Monday. My good friend Beth Carroll is going to be on the show. We're going to be talking about her
Oh,
career and
yeah.
compensation, and compensation is a big deal. If you get compensation right, you usually get the behaviors that you want. If you get it wrong, sometimes it can be a disaster. So we're going to talk about that. And so make sure you come back next week. And for anybody on the call who hasn't been to a Word on the Street, It's in about an hour at noon Central. We're going to have Charlie Safro and the Street Crew talking about the labor market and what's going on, a bunch of other fun stuff. So we'll see you guys hopefully at that point. If not, we'll see you on Monday for another episode of Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, leadership, powered by Beta Consulting Group and brought to you by TAFS. Be sure to check out TAFS.com and tell them Trey sent you. Robyn, thanks so much. Great to have you on the show.
Bye.